Good evening. I am going to call to order the September 11th, 2023 school committee meeting. I am going to read a brief statement. This meeting is being held in person and or remotely as an alternate means of public access pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023 and all other applicable laws, temporarily amending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You are hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Hingham in accordance with the open meeting law. If any participant wishes to record this meeting, please notify the chair at the start of the meeting in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, so that the chair may inform all other participants of said recording. We have Harbor Media recording, and we are also making a recording on Zoom. Is there anyone in the audience or online who is recording? If you don't mind throwing your hand up. Nope. Okay, so we will move on to the second item of business. We've got a set of minutes to approve for the meeting held on August 29th, 2023.
And I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting held August 29th.
And I will second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Item 3 is questions and comments. We have set aside 15 minutes to take questions and comments for items that are not on tonight's agenda. Our practice is to take questions and comments during new business items that are on the agenda. If you would like to make a comment or pose a question, if you could raise your hand, and then I can recognize you. If that's the case, I will read the statement, and otherwise I will move on. Is there anyone who wants to question or comment? No. Okay. So we're going to move on to item 4. We've got the superintendent's report, so I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Adams.
Yep, we were glad to welcome all of our students back to school last week. It was a hot week, so we're hoping that's not replicated again until June. But we're glad to have some more tempered weather this week and hope for the fall coming soon. We're glad to have the students back. We was able to visit every single school as well as start to visit other programs including Kids in Action. Our students are back on the fields and we're glad to see them back in competition, and the arts and music calendar is filling up quickly of different events that are coming up and are starting to be planned. So we're grateful to have our students back and staff back hard at work. Open houses are scheduled for the next couple of weeks as well, and we look forward to welcoming our families back into the schools as well. In the packet I included a curriculum newsletter that came. We're grateful for Katie Roberts and the curriculum directors for organizing this. I think it highlights some great work being done at the elementary. We're rolling out the new reading program and hope to highlight that several times throughout the upcoming school year, including an opportunity tomorrow night for families to Zoom in and learn more about the program. 7 o'clock tomorrow. Your principals' newsletters have the link in multiple places, so please join us. It also includes information on some work that was done around writing, including in kindergarten. Writing is one area where in early literacy there's a big, very strong connection between reading and writing, so we're excited and grateful to Monica Matthews for her help in supporting some of those early writers. Some information about iReady and its continuation for the coming school year, a grade 5 new social studies curriculum that'll be rolled out as the year goes on, and some notes around world language and fine arts as well. I included some enrollment numbers. Thank you for Sherry and the admin assistants at each of the buildings for helping us with this. You'll see also comparison to last year's numbers, which show at going school by school at East a positive of 12 right now. October 1st is usually the numbers that are often used by districts because you have students who might still be on our rolls who haven't quite withdrawn or told us they've withdrawn. So these are preliminary numbers. We'll come back and give you those October 1st numbers that are often used by districts to say this is what our enrollment is. But as of right now, East was a positive 12, Foster a negative 2. This is comparing to last year. Plymouth River a +7, and South a +7. That's including the additions and the negatives subtracted. Our middle school, you'll see that we lost 12 students moving in from 6th to 7th grade, and an additional 6 students moving from 7th to 8th grade, which was a delta of -7. And then at the high school, we also lost some students moving from 9th to 10th and 10th to 11th, so it was a -7. And again, we'll share those numbers again in October to give you a sense of where enrollment kind of lands. I don't know if there are questions about this.
I just have a question about the pre-K program. Those numbers looked a little down. Did we have a higher portion last year, or are we thinking that the 85 this year is what we're going to be seeing going forward?
You mean the kindergarten numbers? Oh, no, the
Pre-K.
pre-K. I thought it was 90 last year, so I
I
didn't think it was lower than last year.
I had 97.
Okay.
They do
97.
go up over the year as
Yep.
kids
Okay.
turn 3. and enter
Oh,
the
that's right.
program.
That's a good point. Okay.
Yeah,
That's
so the
probably-
enrollment grows as you get students from early intervention.
Okay, I understand.
And some of those slots are purposely left open so that we can take students who are turning 3, and the district is required to provide services to.
Good.
So,
Glad I asked. No, I understand.
yep, yeah.
So I know I quickly asked you a question last time on enrollment. I'm still struggling a little bit with like the year over year. Because I thought last year we had 3,800, and this year we have 3,715. I recognize numbers can change. So am I not thinking about that correctly? Because the second page kind of feels like it's about even.
So last year, the graduating class was
Very
excessively
large.
big relative to the incoming classes. So I think that's probably where a big part of that delta comes.
I think it's half.
So why wouldn't that show in
20
year over year?
20 more.
What's the analysis?
Yeah.
on- What am I not, you know what I mean? Like, why wouldn't that show up in the high school numbers being less?
It's a good
So I
question.
had 1156 at the high school last year.
I think the numbers at our middle school and high school are decreasing,
Okay.
which I can do for another meeting, is put the numbers of looking at the middle school, our elementary numbers, our middle school numbers, and our high school numbers, to give you a sense of how that enrollment is declining, especially at the middle school and high school.
Yeah, okay.
We've lost enrollment there,
Thank you.
and what that looks like over time.
Anybody else? No? Okay. Thank you for pulling this together, Katie and Sherry. I appreciate that. Okay, item 5, we've got 5.1, communications received by the superintendent. Any? No. And then our student we will have hopefully back next week. Other communications, I just wanted to highlight that I sent everybody communications from the town clerk that there's a new training portal, so I just wanted to highlight that. That's a new requirement. Even if you have done the 2-year training within the last 2 years, the state is asking that we do it again because there's this new online portal that will be tracked. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. Okay, so moving on to item 6, unfinished business, we don't have any. Item 7, to receive a report on world language proficiency testing. So this is going to be Dr. Adams and Erica Pollard.
So welcome Erica to the podium. We're grateful. Last year, if you remember about this time, Erica came and shared data on the proficiency. This is a statewide initiative associated with the new curriculum frameworks for world language, is around measuring and collecting data about students' proficiency level over the years, and to hopefully to use that data to improve the instruction that students receive. The goal being to get students as close to proficient and higher levels of proficiency in their second language as part of the world language curriculum. So we're grateful for Erica to come again this year to sort of highlight the work of her department in sort of working towards those state benchmarks and standards, and really trying to strive to get our students to a level of proficiency that allows them to be able to communicate, different than when many of us took, including myself, who took French in high school into college, and My extent of being able to communicate in French is bonjour and comment allez-vous. But really getting our students to communicate to high levels and to retain that language, be able to communicate both in reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So we're grateful for the teachers and their work and really embracing the statewide work around proficiency testing, as well as proficiency teaching. So I think that's the part we really want to emphasize. This is the end result. It's all the teaching that gets students to these high levels of proficiency as they go through the program. So I'll pass it on to Erica.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me tonight. As Dr. Adams alluded to, historically, world language didn't have a lot of data to share, and it's really exciting for me to be able to share some concrete information about how our students are doing. And I'd like to start by saying that the way that world language instruction looks now is really, really different than the way that it looked when I was in school and when most of the parents of our current students were in school. And the focus now is really on developing that functional proficiency that helps students to communicate in real world situations. So there's a lot fewer verb conjugation charts and a lot more unscripted speaking to prepare students for the reality of communicating in a second language. So first I want to talk about the Seal of Biliteracy, which we've spoken about before. This is a state initiative that requires students to demonstrate a proficiency level of intermediate high or higher. So that's based on the ACTFL proficiency scale. You can sort of see on the right-hand side what that looks like. Intermediate high is the first level of proficiency at which students can really make use of their skills in a professional setting. So once you reach intermediate high, there's not a lot of situations that you can't navigate in your second language. It's not always perfect, but you're able to make yourself understood and to navigate a whole lot of unexpected situations. So if we go to the next slide, we had 5 students this year receive the Massachusetts Seal of Biliteracy with distinction. That is the highest award that the state gives. It's very difficult to achieve, particularly in a limited amount of study as we have in high school. We had 38 students receive the Massachusetts Seal of Biliteracy, and 164 students in the class of 2023 tested intermediate, mid, or higher. So the goal for the state seal of biliteracy is intermediate high. That's what we would call professional fluency. Intermediate mid is what they refer to as functional fluency, functional proficiency in a language. That is, again, in and of itself, a difficult goal to achieve within a middle school and high school course of study. And that number is one that I'm really proud of. This chart, I tried to do something a little bit different than what I showed you last year. And I wanted to look at how many of our students at the end of a course sequence are reaching that intermediate, mid, or higher mark. Now, this is a little hard to nail down because not all seniors take a language. Not all seniors are in the highest level course of their language. Some students who take the highest level course in their language are not seniors. So what I looked at, the most clear way to look at that for me seemed to be, if we take the students in the final course in a sequence, how many of them are hitting that benchmark? Now, this included, I give the full list of courses in my written report, but it's basically for Spanish and French, it's our level 5s and our APs. For Chinese and Latin, it's our level 4s and APs. So I'm really pleased with the number of students who are hitting that goal. 86%, 97%, 50%, 69%. Now, with Latin, I will say tests in Latin are a little harder to nail down because unlike the spoken languages, they're only looking at one domain. We have found, Latin tests are only tests of reading. So we've tried a couple of different proficiency tests and have found that none of them seem to align as well as the spoken language tests with sort of how teachers think kids are doing and how they do on the test. We talked last year also about how Latin and Chinese are the languages that students have studied for the shortest amount of time. So it makes sense that those numbers are going to be a little bit lower, and they're also harder than French or Spanish for English speakers. So this chart here looks at all of the courses that we offer and the overall progress towards meeting the proficiency target for each course. So the target for each course is based on where we expect students to be at the end of whatever course they're currently in. So the target for each course is different. And what I looked at here was how many of them met or exceeded whatever the target was for the course that they were in. And again, I'm really pleased with those numbers. The vast majority of our students are either meeting or exceeding the standards that are set for their course. Now, there's a lot of numbers on these slides that show you in the 4 different languages, how did students do compared to last year? And I mentioned when I spoke to you last year that a real area of focus for us was speaking. We noticed at the end of last year that the lowest domain score pretty much across the board was in speaking. And so we made some efforts to provide instruction that would strengthen those skills. So we did professional development around, and we practiced what is an actful goal of having the language, the target language, spoken in the classroom 90% of the time or more. So very little English being used in the classroom. We worked on providing students with sort of sentence starters and visual supports that will help them to produce language, to remember what they know. And on being explicit about what proficiency is and how you develop it, what students can do to move from one proficiency level to the next. So the first 2 columns show the target, sorry, the first 3 columns, the target, the composite from last year, and the composite from this year, and you can see that most of those numbers went up. And then the final 2 columns show speaking, because that was really our area of focus for this year. And I was really happy to see that there was a lot of improvement pretty much across the board in speaking. The NT there stands for not tested, so those are groups that weren't tested the previous year, so there's nothing to compare it to. Even in those places where the numbers for this year are lower, it's a really small difference, and we can always expect a little bit of variation based on the individual students that are in front of us. So this chart shows Spanish, and if we go forward, we'll see French. There we go. The level 3 French 5 wasn't tested this past year because nobody was in that class, so there was no one to test. But again, overall, we see an increase in numbers from composite scores and also from a speaking score. And the composite score, like AP French, for example, that composite score of 7 is an incredibly impressive score for a high school student. And the fact that that group of kids is able to consistently achieve that well is really impressive. When we go forward, we'll see Chinese. Again, we saw improvement pretty much across the board here, in particular with our speaking, which was an area, as I said, that we had really hoped to improve on. Last but not least, we have Latin. We did do a lot of the same sorts of activities in Latin classes as in the other classes, even though students in Latin aren't specifically tested on their ability to speak Latin. The research generally seems to indicate that speaking Latin and hearing Latin help you to acquire it in the same way as you would acquire a language that's still spoken. Because if you think about it, we don't speak Latin now, but historically it was a language that people learned the same way that we learn languages now. So we used a lot of the same strategies in Latin classes, but they're not necessarily reflected in the scores because speaking isn't what we were testing here. So I think that it makes sense for us to continue focusing on speaking as an area of development for students. Even with the growth that we saw this year, it is generally the part of language learning that kids feel the most nervous about. And the more confidence we can give them in that area, the better it's going to be for them in the long run. Our department goals for this year focus on individual goal setting. So again, expanding students' knowledge of what proficiency is and what I specifically can do and focus on to improve my language. The scores that we get back from the stamp test give kids a pretty detailed report of the 4 subscores, reading, writing, listening, and speaking, and gives them a really solid idea of their own strengths and what they can do to improve upon them. So we're working on helping students to set their own goals and reflect on that process throughout the year so that hopefully we can get them invested in the process of improving their proficiency. Continued, we talked about this before, but those languages that we have less time to teach, such as Latin and Chinese, kids aren't reaching the same levels of proficiency. So the idea of exploring the expansion of those languages, I think, is something we should consider. And that is all I have, unless you have questions.
Question about Latin.
Yeah.
You added I think it was freshman in the course selection. Did you add a course? I have to remind me vaguely. There was a course, it was a different level for the freshmen?
Yes,
course?
so we
That-
allowed students the option to choose honors or upper
That's what it is,
standard in
honors.
Latin, which we previously hadn't done and wanted to do because we found that students were shying away from courses that they couldn't get honors credit for.
So my question is will that change have any impact on any of these numbers going forward? Would you see that having an impact on
On enrollment numbers?
enrollment numbers and the proficiency that I think was like the 50%? Would you
Yep.
see that'll have an impact on it, or?
I do think that it will encourage more students to attempt to learn Latin and Chinese because students were, I heard from a lot of kids that they were concerned about taking an upper standard course in their GPA, which I wish we would focus on the language learning, but I have to, I have to be concerned about the things that they're concerned about as well. So hopefully in the long run, it will bring more people into the program,
Okay.
and hopefully that will also improve scores.
Great, thank you.
Tim?
Hey,
Hi.
this is awesome data. We love data. Showing, this is. I'm wondering, no good presentation of data doesn't come without a request for more data. Of course, of course. I know one of the things that we really like to look at when we see these really impressive presentations about all the gains the kids are making are breaking out multilanguage learners, breaking out special ed students. We know that these gains are being made across the board by students, and I think it would also tell us that. Be reassuring to know that students with special education plans are getting into the foreign language classes in the upper levels. And
Absolutely.
So.
Yes, I would be happy to look into that. One of the things that I have worked on in the last couple of years is, with this move towards proficiency-oriented teaching, this is a method of teaching that is really successful for most students and brings much more success for our students with disabilities than memorization of long lists of vocabulary and verb conjugations. So we've increased the number of students with disabilities who are taking a language, kids who might previously have sought a waiver. We now have options that will accommodate them. I haven't taken a specific look at their growth over time, but I think it's a great thing to explore.
Awesome.
In terms of our multilingual learners, there are still so few of them that it's really hard to track.
And I'm guessing the so few of them that we have might be at the top of the scores.
Well, and so what we have encouraged, I've tried to encourage all of our multilingual students who come to us with another language at home to take the test in their home language, even if they're not studying at Hingham High, because I think it's really important to recognize that what they bring to the table is really valuable and something that their classmates have worked for 12 years to obtain and they already have.
Thank you.
Did you have a question? No. Sorry, I thought I saw your hand. Okay. This is amazing, thank you. And as Tim said, the more data we get, the more we want.
Absolutely.
My first language is French Canadian, and my next big birthday, I keep saying I'm going to France, so I keep telling my daughter she has to keep taking French because she's going to have to speak for me because it's not the same kind of French. But I'm curious about, so you said there's exploring options at Hingham Middle, and I know that Chinese was added on.
Yep.
Are kids allowed to take 2 languages once that's been added, or are they only taking 1?
At the middle school, do you mean?
At the middle school, yep.
So we do have some students at the middle school who choose to take 2 languages. It's not very many, in part because it leaves you a schedule without room for electives. So if we have kids who want to be involved in music and the arts, we certainly don't want to ask them to shut the door on that. I will occasionally talk to families and work with them on outside of school things that they can do to sort of, okay, if a student comes to us, for example, with some background in French and wants to continue growing until they get to the high school and can have more level appropriate classes, we'll hopefully be able to work out some, individual plans for those kids. But I think with Chinese at the middle school, we are offering it every other year.
Okay.
So this is our first. We offered 7th grade last year, 8th grade this year. Those kids will jump into our Chinese 2 class at the high school the following year, and we'll have another 7th grade class to follow.
Got it. So the kids who are 6th grade, could they go into the 7th grade ones, or is it only
Yes.
open to okay, got it.
So they start in 7th grade. In order to offer more sections, we would need more staff.
Right, and then, so that leads to my next question. So, for the students who are electing to take Chinese, have you seen a significant decrease in the other languages? So I'm curious about the class sizes of the other languages.
Yeah. Now, because we can only offer one section because of staffing at the middle school, max is 25 kids. So it hasn't had an appreciable impact on those other languages at this point. It seemed to me like they drew fairly equally from students taking French and students taking Spanish.
Okay. All right, I think this is going to be the last question. So since you offer one class, is it the same teacher at the high school as in the middle school? Okay, got it.
Yes. So for Chinese teachers, our teacher, Ms. Lee, teaches 1 period a day at the middle school and 4 at the high school, and then I teach the AP class, and that's all the Chinese we have.
Okay, got it. All right, thank you. Anybody else? No? All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I'm maybe not going to sit down because I have something else to talk about.
That's right. So 7.2, to discuss an exploratory group to consider the possibility of Spanish elementary structured immersion program. So, again, Erica Pollard.
So the purpose of this evening is just to let you know, we're making no decisions. Remember that we added a pre-K classroom, a KIA class that just started today. Today.
Yeah, today.
Today, at the Foster. It has 17 students, I believe, 17 students. And we're doing that on a pilot basis. We know that in the community there are other programs that offer immersion experiences for students locally. So the purpose is to create a small group that would do an exploration, a lot of research, visiting other programs, collect information, really have a discussion. We met and briefly generated lots of questions that we had that would need to be answered. And ultimately to decide if this is even doable, if it's even possible. So it's to create a group that would do a pretty rapid self-study over the next couple of months, to make some determinations as we begin the budget season in late winter, about what would this require and provide and need. So that's the purpose, is just to give you some information that we're going to start the group and begin some exploration and get some feedback as the group starts to figure out and organize itself. But we wanted to make sure to let you know that was happening. So I'll pass it on to Erica so she can explain what we've done so far and what we're thinking moving forward.
Yes, thank you. So we, Dr. Adams and Mr. Shifley at Foster and I have met several times at this point to, generate a long list of questions that we would need to answer in order to proceed with an immersion program. And why immersion is a question that we addressed last year when I spoke to you about the pilot for the pre-K program. When it comes to language learning, immersion is really the gold standard. There is lots of research, a long history of research, a lot of it comes out of French Canadian speakers, that show that immersion is really, really beneficial for students. They develop higher levels of proficiency in in the second language than students who only study in a, once a day type of environment. They also develop advanced problem-solving skills, executive control, cognitive flexibility, and their English skills don't suffer either, so it's all around a win. Plus, they gain cross-cultural understanding and tolerance, which is, of course, what we want for all our students. So I am happy at any point to discuss the research in more detail, but this is a very quick overview of the things that immersion can do for you. And our purpose as an exploratory committee would be to support innovation in the Hingham Public Schools by exploring the possibility of developing a K-5 immersion program. In terms of members of the committee, Dr. Adams and Mr. Shifley and myself, and we're also going to be looking for an elementary language teacher, someone who's already on our staff, other staff members, possibly from Foster, since that's where we're proposing that this program would exist, a member of the Foster School Council, and some parent volunteers to round out the group. Here's a shortened list of the questions that we would need to consider. What language would we speak? What is the program format that we would choose? So over here on the right, we see, this is an example program format from a different district in Massachusetts. It basically refers to what percentage of the time are we using the second language by grade level. A lot of them start off with a high level of target language use in kindergarten and first grade, and decrease to 50% or so by fifth grade, so that students' English and second language skills are developing together. Obviously, we have to consider the budget. What would it cost, to hire teachers, to get textbooks, to get the materials that we need? Would, for example, transportation costs be impacted if we chose to run this as a magnet program that was open to students from other schools in the district, not just Foster? How would we admit kids? Would we have a lottery? Would we give priority to students who were, say, in the pre-K program this year, or have a sibling in the program, down the road? And of course, considerations for special education services, and would we be able to provide them with the support that they need in an immersion setting? I think there might be another question at the bottom there that I can't read. Curriculum and instructional methods, thank you. A lot of the materials that we use in our general, our existing elementary programs are available in Spanish versions. Our new ELA curriculum is available in its entirety in Spanish. But we would, of course, need to look into what are the other pieces of curriculum and are they available in a second language. And if the language that we were to choose were to not be Spanish, where and how would we come up with materials for that program? Part of our goal is going to be to visit some existing immersion programs. This isn't an exhaustive list of immersion programs in Massachusetts, but what I focused on are what we call one-way immersion programs, where we have primarily kids who are English speakers focusing on learning a second language. There are other models, but this is the model that makes the most sense for Hingham. So Maynard Public Schools has a program in Spanish. Holliston and Milton have programs in French. The Pioneer Valley Charter School is a little bit different because it's a charter school and it's K through 12, but they offer a great program in Chinese that's gotten a lot of attention over the last couple of years. And Millis, Wayland, and Mendon Upton all offer programs in Spanish. So hopefully I've already set up visits with some of these places, and in the coming weeks, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to arrange visits to some of these other places. And if you look underneath each one of those schools, you'll see that every district really does develop its own program structure. Other than they're going to speak more of the target language at the beginning than they do at the end, there's not really one consistent answer. There's not one right way to do this. There are lots of successful paths that we could choose. And Dr. Adams discussed a little bit why at this moment. The pre-K program that started this year is, I think, a great indicator, as well as the existence of other immersion programs in this area that families enroll in. We do want to attract families to the Hingham Public Schools with innovative programming. I think that this is a unique aspect of, or a unique program that would encourage people to come to Hingham if that's part of what they're considering when they choose a place to live. There is, and has been for a long time, community interest in elementary language learning. We've had our elementary Spanish program for a long time, and it's been very successful. And of course, we want to prepare students to participate in the diverse global community that we live in now. It's becoming, I think, more important every year as time passes. And because Foster will be opening in a new building, we will have additional space to support this kind of programming that simply wouldn't be possible in the existing buildings. So that's why. I do have a timeline. So here we are in September. I am presenting to the school committee to talk about the exploratory committee. And
Wow,
Mr.
it's been so
Shifley,
far.
so far we're there. Mr. Shifley is going to present as well to the school council and to the PTO at the Foster School. In October, we're going to be making some site visits once we've assembled our team. And we'd also like to survey families to determine interest. We don't want to pilot a program that people don't want. So I think it's important to find out what people in the community are interested in. We will continue with site visits in November with some updates to stakeholders as we make progress. And in December, our plan would be for the committee to develop a proposal for the school committee outlining recommendations. And it may be that in December they say, we need more time, and we can't do this next year because we need more time to think about it. And it might be that they have a detailed plan for how we could make this work. I honestly don't know how it will go, and I'm really excited to see what we can pull together. In January, if the committee is proposing that we move forward with an immersion program, we will be making, well, either way, we'll be making a presentation of finals to the school committee in time for you to talk about the budget. Any questions?
I'm just doing for site visits, doing a little plug for Somerville that has I think one of the oldest programs. It's been around 30 years, the UNIDOS program, which was actually at the school my kids went to for elementary school back in the day. And it's changed the atmosphere of the school. It was a wonderful thing for the community. It is an incredibly competitive program to get into in Somerville, and it is a crown in the jewel of their public school system. So I would love to see that energy here.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely.
I think you might have answered this, but those 5 schools, the pilot, the ones that you're going to go visit, are those the only ones in Massachusetts that are the same type of program?
So that are
looking at?
running exactly the kind of program
Yes.
that we're sort of guessing would be the best fit here.
Okay.
There are other schools, there's charter schools and magnet schools in different districts that offer individual, so maybe one school offers a program that isn't available unless you attend that school. There are more schools in Massachusetts running immersion than were on that list.
Thank you.
This is my short list of places to go, but now I'm going to add Somerville to the list.
And I recognize public school, but are there any schools that charge like a additional fee for this kind of programming?
I mean, if there are private immersion programs, we targeted public school immersion programs.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Could
Oh,
this
sorry.
I'm sorry. Could this fit into programming that we would potentially in future years accept out of district kids for?
Potentially, it's an option for school choice
Yeah.
if we went that way. But
Okay.
again, I think it's a way to attract families.
Mhm.
I think that if we looked at local private school options, you can see that there is interest in the community in an immersion kind of experience for children. Again, I think the piece that it also highlights is the role of global education, is really preparing kids for the world through use of language as a means to learn about a group of people around the world and to learn different cultures and really broaden students' understanding. So I think that it's also, it shows the interest of the community in both language learning and that sense of around global education. So.
And I think that what you said about Somerville and how that's sort of the crown jewel of that particular school, I hear that from a lot of districts that do run immersion programs, that it is something they're incredibly proud of and it's become an important part of their school community. And I think that it would be wonderful to bring something like that to Hingham.
And having started my teaching career in an immersion program, I think that often that small program that's within a larger school also impacts the full culture of the building. So I'm sure if we visited that program in Somerville. That may be a strand in the building, but it impacts all the students there.
Just because my
Even-
kids were not in the immersion program, my kids were just in the school outside of it, but it definitely affected their life
Yeah.
within the school.
It becomes part of the culture around how students learn in that school, and it's just, all of the students would benefit from such a program, not only in the school, but in the district, right? There's a focus, there's some expertise around language learning at high levels at the early grades, around global education and inclusion, around diverse perspectives that everyone benefits from, so. And that's something we look forward to exploring. It's what's the impact on other students in the school as well.
All right.
All right,
Thank you all so much for hearing what I have to say.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, 7.3, to discuss communications plan for 2023 and 2024 school year and act as appropriate. We've got Dr. Adams and Heather Cashman taking us through this.
So we have Heather here again. She was here last year doing her first year presentation on a communication plan. So this year, it's sort of, we have some data to share with you, a retrospect on last year, what went well, what we didn't quite accomplish and are moving forward or revised in some way, as well as outlining a plan for the coming school year to build upon the successes of last year. So you'll see that we'll highlight some high-level data to share with you, because we know you like data. We brought you some, as well as some goals that really continue to foster effective two-way communication, continue to use technology as a means to support communication and continue to evolve, as well as strengthen our social media presence. You'll also see some work around trying to support students at transition periods as well, which sort of matches some of the feedback that we've gotten about how do we support transitions between the grades, between schools, elementary to middle, middle to high school, as well as pre-K to elementary. So I'll pass it off to Heather.
Bonjour, comment ça va aujourd'hui?
Ça va bien?
So that'll be
Great. That's how much French I know. Well,
Aren't you Canadian?
yeah, I know. It's,
Okay.
it's a shame. I know. Don't let that speak for other Canadians. So yeah, I'm really happy to be here. I was here about this time last year. We shared preliminary communications plan, and then this presentation is really going to look at the successes from last year. We distributed a communication survey over the summer, so we're going to look a little bit into that and then get into the plan moving forward. So, some successes from this past school year. You could just see the beautiful data in red like you all enjoy. So we distributed 28 press releases over the course of the school year. So I just want to mention all of these are September to June, and it's 21-22 school year compared to 2022-2023, just so we get apples to apples comparison. So yeah, 143% increase in Instagram reach, and in the thousands of numbers, it went from 10,840 to 26,353 users over a school year. 57% increase in Facebook posts, 20% increase in Instagram posts, and 310% increase in Instagram stories. A big reason for this push is because I actually heard someone say, she's probably 30 last year, the beginning of last year, and she said, I don't look at the feed anymore, I just look at Instagram stories. And I just was like, oh my God, I don't, that was not my focus, but now it's going to be. So a lot of flyers were posted to the story, and any posts that were on the feed I threw up on the story just so we're reaching everybody. And then I would say, pretty successful outreach for the new elementary school and the override. We did 2 video campaigns you may have seen on social media. So for the school building project, each video got about 2,700 views. And then for the override posts, about 1,500 views, which is pretty significant. Another reason for the video content push is because on Reels, on Instagram, the videos, they get published to the the followers, but also non-followers as well. So there was one from graduation. It was literally people throwing caps in the air, and it reached 14,000 people, and like 12,000 didn't follow the page, and then we got a lot of followers from that. So that's just a good tactic to reach folks that don't already follow the schools, because you can assume, if it's an override post, people following Hingham Public Schools might already, vote in favor of the schools, but folks that don't follow it might not. So it was really key that we could reach those people. 16 employee appreciation posts, 53 SMORE emails sent from the districts. That's not including the building sends. And each monthly newsletter gets around 7,500 views, some lower, some higher than that. And then 20 completed outreach campaigns. And when we say outreach campaign, really that's putting it on all channels, that's updating the website, it's putting on social media, it's doing a press release, and putting out in a newsletter. So there's 20 of those. Examples are, job postings, new student registration, Spanish pre-K, the strings program, which we were pushing recently. So those are all the successes from the last school year. So we put out a survey in June-ish and kind of collected responses all summer. And it was originally targeted at all community stakeholders, but we got the majority from parents or caregivers, which makes sense. Staff aren't looking at their emails over the summer, rightfully so, and neither are students. So I just want to mention we're going to be doing an additional survey this year that's going to specifically target those groups. So these insights are generally based off of parents and caregivers. So these are ones I found really interesting and that kind of formed the plan moving forward. So 91% of users are either on their mobile device or a laptop. I found that really interesting because my work day is all on a desktop. So you can see kind of the issue there. I'm updating things for desktop, and I really need to be double checking for a mobile device. Same thing with newsletters. When principals are writing out their narrative or their paragraphs, they really have to think of that shortened screen. How long are you going to be scrolling through each paragraph? So those are the insights from that. This was expected, but there was mixed satisfaction of the websites. 58% found it okay. Well, actually good and very good. I won't. Anyway, 58% found it okay, and 34% were dissatisfied with the website. The preferred contact is email, but folks really do want that diversified approach. I thought that was really interesting. So almost everybody checked the box for email, but a lot of folks checked for text, social media, newsletter, and website. So I found that pretty interesting. And there was significant interest in a mobile app, the possibility of introducing a mobile app to get all of the information. 67% would likely or very likely use it. And then the preferred social media platform is Meta-based, so that's Facebook and Instagram. So 78% prefer those two channels. Interesting, but not surprising. Only 1% of parents or caregivers are on Twitter. And then another interesting finding is that 17% of parents or caregivers aren't on social media at all. So that's really helpful to know, and it really shows that we. The communications need to be diversified, like I said. They can't just be on social media. They have to be on the website. They have to be via email. They have to be school messenger, mass notification, and things like that. And then Meta, so Facebook and Instagram, those will be where the majority of the resources go. And Twitter will be a little bit pulling back from Twitter. And though Twitter will still remain for emergency notification, school closures, sort of items like that. All right, so I just want to, this is a brief overview. This is the nice thick plan you have in the packet, and that'll be on the website later as well. So how it is laid out is there's goals are kind of the umbrella, and then there's objectives under the goals, and then action steps below each of those objectives. So this is an overview, but there's 3 goals, 12 objectives within those 3 goals, and then 42 action items within those objectives. So that's just kind of how it's laid out. Anyway, so goal 1, it's actually very similar to last year: create effective two-way communication between the district and schools and community stakeholders. The new objectives here are employ multiple communication tactics to support recruitment and hiring, and strengthen opportunities for collaboration with families with students with special needs. And an example of an action step, so that would be under an objective: create and distribute new branding materials. And I'm going to use the word branding. You know, it does apply to schools, but you'll get the idea. It's logos and materials and kind of how the public schools present. So these screenshots are just 2 items of items that we've created. So, you know, why Hingham Middle School? That's been a flyer that's just kind of gotten posted up different places in town. But there will be a bigger push this year to distribute, you know, the brochures and stuff like that in high traffic areas, in schools, you know, at fairs and stuff like that. And I do want to mention materials don't exist yet or haven't. So that's definitely a priority of mine and you know, the central to get that out. Second action step. This is probably my favorite, but just because it's interesting to me. But evaluate the branding of HPS, including the logos and materials. So really, the evaluation process is just looking at that. So, you know, what is the HPS brand? So when you hear Hingham Public Schools, what comes to mind, right? Do the current logos, so these 2 on the right, do those logos share that message that pops in your head? Do people even like the new logos, right? And, you know, do they identify, you know, do they see these logos and think Hingham Public Schools? Or are we looking at that, you know, red H or this older logo? And this older logo is in many places, so we just really need to evaluate that and look a little bit deeper into the branding of the schools. Goal 2, this is a new goal, and it's largely based on the survey, and it's optimize communications technology to meet the evolving needs of the school community. So just 2 objectives I want to highlight: establish a communications technology committee to review current communication software. So that's going to be an offshoot of the already existing technology committee, and it's hopefully going to be diversified in who's involved in the group. And it's going to be reviewing, you know, the website, the mass notification system, school messenger, like the robocalls and stuff like that, and then look if a mobile app is warranted, and then to possibly demo new products if the current products, you know, it's decided that they're not meeting the needs of the community. And then another one I want to mention is distribute communication survey to student, staff, and community members. Like I said that earlier. This is largely based on parents and caregivers. So a action step for goal 2 is share graphics on social media for all early releases, holidays, important dates, and school closures. This graph is from the survey. Basically, folks were asked, what do you value, what types of information do you value most? And kind of obvious, but it's, you know, emergency notifications and holidays and school closures. So those had the highest. Extracurriculars just kind of in there because obviously it's in between, but you can see, you know, it's a lot more mixed than holidays and emergency response. So, or sorry, emergency notifications. So what that's going to look like is posting all early releases, holidays, etc., graphics on social media, on the website, making sure it's in that live feed, or if it's a school closure, ensuring there's a header, you know, and making sure that the school messenger, the robocalls are up to date. And, you know, that's parents and staff. So just ensuring that.
That's a good question, Heather.
Yeah.
A lot of the Facebook communication happens in groups, like class-specific groups. Like I know there's a class of 26, a class of 25 Facebook group.
Mm-hmm.
I know you're not the moderator of any of those groups.
Right.
Could there? I don't know what the possibilities for figuring out who those are and cross-posting, because I know a lot of parents look to those specific groups.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that would be definitely something to look into. Social media is a huge project, and it takes a lot of people to be giving content to make, good, robust social media. So that's a great idea, actually. So I'll look into that and see, what information are they sharing that's really specific to the classes that I don't even know are going on. And that's not fault of anybody. It's just, people don't think, I needs to go on the district social media. Not everybody is thinking that, right? So that would,
That's what they share.
Yeah.
right, exactly. So that would be a good partnership. I appreciate that.
One partnership I remember is when we did the job fair in August, we shared those with the PTOs who did a lot of cross-posting. And I'm pretty sure that wide reach by enlisting members of the community to help us share the word really did help support those efforts. So.
Yes, definitely. The community partnerships are huge. The Hingham Music Parents Association actually reached out to me over Instagram to share a flyer, so there is a lot of collaboration there. So this is an action step. Goal 2, it's kind of in the weeds about website management, but basically how we've put information on the website is via PDFs, and Google and the search function don't like PDFs. They just see an image and any of the really important keywords. This is fast facts, so if you just had a PDF there and you searched Foster fast facts, nothing would come up. So the general attitude, but nothing comes up in your search or Google search, it doesn't exist. It's like, no, it does. It's just in a PDF, which is not good. So that's going to be a big push this year across all 7 sites, taking important information out of PDFs, pasting it into actual text on the web pages. Goal 3 is also a new goal and extremely important, as outlined by Dr. Adams in the enrollment update. So better support students and families during transition years. 2 main objectives: improve outreach efforts for special transition events and employ a new student registration campaign. So a good action step for that first objective there. Derek Smith at the middle school, he sent this connection directly to 5th grade parents about the program of studies night. That's exactly what we're looking for, is targeted emails to the right target, because there are events that are going on for these transitional events, like kindergarten information night. There's a bunch of events for that. But if pre-K parents don't know that those exist, then we're failing in some way for outreach. So bigger push to get those transitional events. So pre-K to kindergarten, kindergarten to 1, 5 to 6, 8 to 9. And there was actually really good feedback from the 5th grade parents. They really appreciated having a communication from the middle school principal. So that was good on Mr. Smith.
Ask a question related to that. I'm thinking of the 17% non-social media users. I'm guessing that would be lower of parents with younger children. My mind is going towards the pushing for enrollment for kindergarten and pre-K and reaching the non-social media parents at that time.
Right.
of the
So
year. Would that reach fall into that?
yeah,
or-
so it's a perfect segue into the next one.
Okay, sorry.
No. It's a great question.
Should've waited.
It's an obvious, question. There needs to be a lot of research into the best practices of increasing enrollment. Whether we like it or not, we are competing for students, in comparison to private schools, homeschools, charter schools, et cetera, immersion programs, so there really needs to be a big push to research the best practices. Is a budget warranted for an item such as this, and figure out the best timeline. I think last year we were a little bit behind the game. This year we're going to be more prepared, figure out what we need to do, timeline and best communication channels for that. And that's That's our little yard sign. And I just put this small specifically so you could see everything's a learning experience. I thought this was awesome when it was big on my screen, and then you can't even read this. So this was our yard sign. So it's a good learning experience. You know, we tried, and you know, next year, again, we're building every year. Sometimes you have to fail to do better the next year. So anyway, that's the yard sign. Questions?
Ally?
Well, first, thank you. There's a ton of data in here, but also it shows how much work happened over last year, so it's really impressive, and there's been huge strides made, so we appreciate all your work. I had one question about the objective that you mentioned about increasing or strengthening the collaboration with families of special needs students.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if you've given any thought to how you're going to do that in terms of increasing use of graphics online, updating the website, because some of that obviously requires a little work to make it easy for voice to text, or for some of our learners who, you know, they're dyslexic or they don't want to read a lot of text and you're using a lot of graphics or other things. Are you going to be incorporating, you know, all the back end work to do that too?
Sure. Yeah, so that's definitely in the preliminary stages, meeting with Dr. Cataldo and figuring, you know, really going to town on those student services web pages. It's a lot of text. And just as a fun fact, a lot of the web pages at a college reading level, which that's a big problem because, you know, not everybody's at a college reading level, and really it should be geared, not saying people are at 4th grade reading level, but that's where the content should be. And actually, we added a widget today of translation services, so there's going to be a little Google widget on the website. So it is kind of research-based, but there, I don't want to speak for student services or for the superintendent's office, but there are some activities outlined in the plan that will target that, and you know, we're in the initial stages of that, but it's on the plan.
Good, thank you.
One major important thing for accessibility is to turn things from PDF. PDF aren't
Right, so you have the
accessible.
voice to text.
You can't do a speech to text or use some of those Google tools on a PDF, especially if it's a PDF of a copy of a copy.
Right.
So that major effort should help the website be more accessible, as well as sort of the mantra is toning down the amount of content so that it's more readable and consumable. Like Heather said, at a lower reading level, not just because people are at that reading level, but
Yeah,
more that's the people want information quickly and be able to access, and then have information in another place where if they want full details, they can get it. So.
Excellent, thank you.
Can I just mention one quick thing? That changing, you know, it's not just the website, it's also social media. 2021, 2022 school years, I was doing these big meaty paragraphs that were just full of information, and I floated one by my wife, and I was like, you know, I think this is pretty good. Can you read it? She read probably half the first sentence and said, oh, I stopped reading. So I was like, okay, well, that's good to know. So, you know, that's actually a tactic in here, is to have like a first line, have some cute little emojis to hook people, and then get into what the post is about, because really people have shorter attention. I have shorter attention span. You know what I mean? So if things are in big, bulky paragraphs, they're hard to digest, they're hard to read, but also, you know, you don't have to, everybody struggles with that now. So that definitely is a push for a lot of the website pages. There's 636 across all 7 websites. So it's going to be a work in progress, but I think we've made a lot of work, a lot of progress over the last year on the website.
Really, it's the same logic that makes you do a PowerPoint to summarize the report that you wrote
Exactly.
for us, so
Yes.
we were late.
Yes, totally.
TikTok averages.
Yeah.
Yes, there is.
Michelle?
I don't know the order, but just before you move off this, there's a
Yes.
hand up. I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure you noticed it.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle just reminded me of that too, so thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. This was great, thank you. My only comment / question, it's not a question really, it's more of a comment and something to think about. I was actually struck that only 28% of people who were surveyed preferred social media. I'm actually kind of heartened by that. I remember we were creating the position of the communications director and what we were thinking about where it was going, because I worry about, I mean, the Surgeon General has said that social media is not good for kids, and I sort of worry about modeling behaviors, right? That if we know it's not good for kids, but then as parents, we're going on social media to get information and to just sort of keep perpetuating the use of social media. So I just hope that you can have that in the back of your mind as the district is moving forward with the communications strategy, just to think about if people prefer email and text messages, is that really where we should be focusing our efforts versus trying to create more content for social media? And I know that's like what a lot of people do, but I don't know if 28% of people if only 28% of people said they prefer to get their information on social media, maybe that's a little bit of a trend that we should be thinking about, that to try to move away from that.
Yeah, well, actually, it was like a checkbox situation, so folks could have checked email and also checked social media, so
Yeah.
they prefer both avenues. What I got from that data is that we have to send messaging on as many channels as we can, really to be inclusive of everybody who is on social media or the website or, email, or maybe they're picking up a paper as well. We have to think about all of that. So really, I wish I could say, oh, it's only 28%. I'm just going to focus on the website. Like, I wish I could do that. My workload would go, get a lot smaller. But really, it has to be all these channels. I remember last year, Matt, we talked about, should there be a central hub? And we figured out email is kind of that central hub, but also, if I want to know what's going on with a business, are they closed or whatever, I go to social media. That's not everybody though, right? So we have to do them all, and it's not really an encouragement like go to social media. It's just like that's one of the avenues, but also check your email. Also go to the website. Every communication channel that we have, we're going to have important notifications there.
Yeah, it's a good point, because I agree with you, Michelle, but I don't prefer to get my news or anything on social media, but the reality is that's where I get a lot of it.
Right.
My guess is a lot of people are in that boat. So I don't know if we asked the question, like where do you actually get, where do you find, I don't think we did ask the question, right? Where do you actually get the news the best from the schools? Because I might prefer from email, but the email isn't as easy to send out every single day. So,
Yeah, we don't have everyone's emails who are coming
Right.
into the district.
Right.
anyways.
No, that would be a very good question. Where do you currently get it? I think, that was maybe the attempt, but survey questions, sometimes you ask it one, right? You get a different learning
We
from
did
it.
ask,
Yeah, we did.
We did,
yeah.
The principal's
Oh, yeah,
newsletter.
yes.
Right, you
Yes.
asked that
Yes,
question
it's
before.
newsletter. Here we go.
Yeah.
See,
we
team
did ask that
effort,
question
team
at one
effort. We
point.
did ask
And
it.
it's the principal's emails, the
Yes.
weekly
Yes.
s'mores that
I love
people are
those.
reading.
Yeah.
And they're getting, oh, here's my snapshot of the week to come. It's really usable, relevant information about your child's school. That's what we heard.
Yes.
It was a large number.
It was a large number for the weekly newsletters, but social media was also there and the website was also there.
I think Michelle's point, though, is well taken, that we should, as a district, we do want to think about how much screen time we're encouraging, not just for students, but for parents as well, and.
So I have 3 screens.
But I don't know the right answer, but it is something longer term we need to constantly be thinking about, and what is the message we're sending by using all of these channels all the
I
time.
don't know. I think that ship has sailed. I think we're having this conversation about 10 years too late, or 20 years too late.
Ways to change behaviors. I mean, we got rid of plastic water bottles to change people's behaviors.
Yeah.
I mean, you can,
You're not wrong. You are right.
I mean, it is harming children.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the fact. So,
Mhm.
I mean, that's what, I just want to be cognizant of that.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
And adults. It's
And
harming
adults, yes, I'm sorry.
certainly. But, I totally see that point. I
Right,
get
but you
that.
also have to
But-
put communications out, so.
You have to
Right.
communicate with
Yes.
where they are,
Where the people
right?
are. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And nowhere would I encourage, look at all of our posts 24, like a teacher actually said, I check your feed every day. I was like, oh, okay. Is that a good thing? I don't know. You know, so there is a lot of emphasis on it, but again, you know, we have to get the message out as many ways as we can, but there will never be like explicit coaxing to look at all of the content. Yeah, it's more there if you want it.
Yep, which is perfect. That's what I was trying to get at. I was hoping that I would not want to move, like, let's try to get people to get the information on social media, right? Because a lot of companies do that, right? So, so that's what I was just sort of saying. I want to keep a broad array of opportunities for people to get their information. And if 96% of them want it by email, then let's
Exactly.
pursue
Do it.
that. Perfect.
All right, so I see a hand up. If anyone else in the public would like to ask a question, just throw your hand up. I'm going to recognize Rebecca Nadisitko. If you can state your name and address, please. Sherry will unmute you. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Rebecca Nadisitko, 5 Lily Pond Lane. Thanks for all the numbers on the communications plan. Definitely awesome and so much improved. I wanted to ask about accessibility and inclusion on social media. There are a lot of best practices in terms of color response, contrast, alt text, the script in general that we've been using, and a lot of text that's not a best practice or compliant. And then also using emojis with bullet points is an example of something that we could probably do better on, because when you have a text reader, they can't read those bullet points that we're using as emojis. So I just wanted to ask about, I guess, the policy on accessibility and inclusive design.
Well, thank you, Rebecca. I appreciate that comment because, you know, that's something that isn't in the plan and I didn't think about. I'm going to be 100% honest. You know, emojis, you're right, as a bullet point, if you're doing that kind of text contrast, that would actually make it worse. So I do appreciate that. Luckily, this plan is evolving. You know, I make changes throughout the year. So that's actually something that I'm going to add to this and look into because, you know, we want to be inclusive of everybody that's on social media. So I appreciate that information. Yeah.
Yeah,
thank
that's
you.
awesome. This is actually my field too, so if you wanted to talk about offline, I have a resource. Been kind of my pet project for this fall.
Great. Thank you so much.
Awesome, thank you,
You're welcome.
Rebecca. I think it's something we've definitely talked in relation to the website, but not necessarily in relation to social media posts, so thank you for that.
Yes.
Anyone else before we move on to approvals? Okay. All right. So somebody want to make a motion to approve?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the communication plan for 23-24 as presented with additional tweaks as the year goes on, just like Rebecca just mentioned.
I will second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No? All right. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank you, Heather.
Okay, so next item on the agenda is 7.4, to discuss the process for naming a new elementary school and act as appropriate. So this is exciting, something that's coming up. We are looking to open the school next September. So in order to do that, we have to vote at town meeting, and just kind of backing into that, we need to have a warrant article. So I'm going to have Dr. Adams kind of take us through the process that she was thinking about.
So this is to outline a process for you all about gathering gathering community input. When we're probably already a little late, that the memo says that we would share this week a survey, so we're probably a week out, week behind, but to elicit from the community suggestions for names via a survey that we would get the word out via various platforms, starting in mid-September, going all the way through the end of October. Collect the principal as well, Matt Shifley at Foster
solicit feedback from the PTO and school council as well to get their insight into naming, and any other meetings that occur in the fall that we can solicit community input. Collecting that data and synthesizing and sharing those results with you sometime in November. Then collecting, based upon your feedback, sort of how broad, like if we have 50 names, sort of how do we narrow down that list to something that's more usable, going for a second round of community feedback, which of the selected or highlighted ones, depending on that first round, to get some additional feedback, collecting that through December, and then coming back with that data back in January so that you could take a vote somewhere in January that will allow sufficient time to draft a warrant and bring it to the select board. That would then allow it to be on the town warrant in April. So the process that I'm doing is just collecting community feedback, synthesizing that, and bringing it to all of you to make a decision about how to proceed. It seemed like 2 rounds made sense. We can narrow it to 1, but I don't, we can try the first round and say, hey, if there are only 3 names that come up, then, we have 3 names, but it feels like we then should probably get some more feedback about which of the names best met the needs or the intent of the community, so.
I think two rounds sounds good. One thing, I'd love to get students as involved as possible with this too. Maybe work with the student advisory committee too, and of course the kids at Foster as well, because this is going to be their school and it's really exciting. I'll just share that I went to a forum at the MASC conference, I think it was last year, on renaming schools. So, and some people who had been through that process, which is a little different because this is a new building, but shared that the more the students were involved, the more successful it was with getting this to the community. So I think just the more we can get the kids involved, the better.
Yeah, I think that's great feedback, and I know Matt Shifley at Foster is going to really embrace that idea. So I think that's a really important piece, and it could be something that could be linked to the curriculum in some way, as well as engaging the high school and middle school students who many would have attended Foster and getting their voice as well. So,
Anybody else? Anyone in the public have any questions or comments? If you could throw your hand up. Okay.
Just quickly, add to that to the students and also the specific community within Foster, not just the students, but the whole neighborhood.
Yeah.
Neighborhood school.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. This is that social media piece of getting the word out to those in the community. But we could collaborate maybe with the senior center. That's a place and get some different members of the community involved too.
And the anchor too. Okay.
Yeah.
And just to remind everybody, this is just a warrant that we are proposing a name. That doesn't mean that we are making the decision. It goes to town meeting, so anybody at town meeting can go and speak on it and propose something else. One thing that I was just looking at the warrant from last year. So when we are renaming or naming an individual room, so this is separate from naming a new building, we will be required to post the meeting 14 days in advance. So we might want to think about that when we are voting on the final name as to what we're going to propose in the warrant as well. It's not specific in the warrant that we need to do that, but I think it's probably good practice.
We can treat it like a
Public hearing.
public
Yeah.
hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Does somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the process for naming the new elementary school to be built on Down Earth.
I will second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Okay, thank you. All right, so next item on the agenda is KIA, yep, to discuss rate for KIA nurses and act as appropriate. So we had talked about KIA rates before, but we need to discuss the nurses. So I'll pass it over to Aisha.
Yes, thank you. We have the rates included in your package. The rate hasn't been increased for the last 2 years. And we just want to bring it to your attention and to propose a new rate for the upcoming school year.
Any questions? No? Anybody in the public have any questions? Okay. Any question?
I'll make a motion. I'll move to increase the rate for nurses in the Kids in Action program to $36.05 for the school year July 1, 2023 to June 30, 2024, and to pay any nurses who worked in the program prior to September 11th, 2023, a retroactive pay adjustment for the period.
I will second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. 7.6, I'm not sure if we have any to discuss grants and donations and act as appropriate.
No
okay.
grants or
Or
surplus.
7.7, all right, no review of surplus material. So these are just standing agenda items that we'll have on every agenda, so we'll go through that. And
Yeah.
sometimes we'll have it and sometimes we won't. So, so we're going to move over to item number 8, subcommittee and project reports and warrants signed. I'll start with Matt.
Yep, real quick, I mentioned this last time, but HEF's first meeting of the year is tomorrow night at 6:30 p.m. And the special education subcommittee's first meeting of this year is on Wednesday, this Wednesday at 4:30.
Thanks. Ally?
Policy meeting will be on the 21st, and Hingham Arts Alliance had a board meeting tomorrow night, which has been postponed.
Okay. Tim?
The first, this is news to everyone in the room, the first educational programming subcommittee will be on the 26th of September at 4:30. So that's good. And I just want to, it's not really a report, I just want to highlight, I know Dr. Adams mentioned in her report, but the elementary caregiver information session on Zoom tomorrow is something so central to what our subcommittee does and is really every parent, I would hope every parent of an elementary student in Hingham would log on to that just to get some really important information that you should know about your child's literacy program. So.
Will that be recorded?
Yeah.
And SNAP is on
Yes.
Thank you.
October 12th, which is tomorrow. October 12th.
Yeah, the event.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't have the deals with them for me.
Okay.
Can you do that? I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah, no,
Carrie.
So Soulshare Snap is celebrating the 10th anniversary. That's amazing. It's been that long. So they're going to be holding an event on October 12th, which I believe is Thursday, 6 o'clock at the Best. It'll be outside under a tent, so it'll be fun.
Thanks.
And sorry to Snap for not having that information for me. Oops.
Okay, so salary negotiations has been busy. Since the last meeting, we have met with Unit B, which is the paras, Unit A, the teachers, and the bus, Unit D, which is new. This is the administrative assistants unit, and the bus drivers. And we have a number of meetings scheduled throughout the fall. Our next one is on the 14th, is Unit A, the teachers.
Great, thank you. Jen?
I just have finance and facilities. We met a week ago Friday, and there are warrants in the packet.
Great, thanks. Michelle?
School building committee is meeting Wednesday night at 6 o'clock or at 6 o'clock?
At 6 o'clock, yes.
6 o'clock, okay. 6 o'clock, school building committee. I don't know if folks have had a chance to drive by Foster, but it is amazing how it's really
Fast.
coming along. I know, the steel is up and
It's
it's
crazy.
really moving along. I
Yeah,
know.
it's great.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Excuse me, the meeting tomorrow, the presentation to the select board as well.
We're giving an update to the
yes.
select board tomorrow on the progress on the Foster building, 6 o'clock, I believe.
Yes.
Okay, I have a update on the Wellness Advisory Committee that was put in place last year. It's something that's required by the state. These committees are intended to ensure that each public school district, has established group of school staff and community representatives to recommend, review, and help implement school policies addressing school nutrition, nutrition education, physical activity, and related issues that affect student health. Today was our first meeting of this school year. We discussed the objectives that of the committee, the plan for the upcoming year, as well as reviewing the data that was compiled from the group last year and to address some of the needs that had been identified. So we will plan to have a meeting once a month. All right, so item 9, any other items not reasonably known within 48 hours of the meeting? So then, item 10 is to adjourn, and we're going to be adjourning to executive session, so I will take a motion.
All right, I will make a motion to adjourn to executive session, not to return to open session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, not to return to open session for the purposes of, and there are several purposes tonight, to approve minutes from the executive session held on June 26th, as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body, and the chair so declares.
I so declare.
To approve minutes from the executive session held July 10th, 2023, as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body, and the chair so declares.
I so declare.
To approve minutes from the executive session held August 25th, as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body, and the chair so declares.
I so declare.
And finally, to discuss strategy with respect to interventionist tutors negotiations, as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body, and the chair so declares.
I so declare. Somebody want a second?
I will second all of that.
And before I take a roll call, I forgot to mention, we've got our next school committee meeting next week. Usually we do every other week, but because Yom Kippur is on September 25th, we are having another meeting next week. We have changed the time to be 6:30 p.m. versus 7 p.m. The school committee has a workshop that starts at 4:30 that day that's being put on by the MASC. And then our next meeting after that is our planning session, which is on a Saturday from 8 to 11 on Saturday, September 23rd. So with all that said, I will take a roll call. Matt?
Aye.
Allie? Tim?
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. And we are adjourned.